Welcome back to our Profits Unlimited podcast channel. Glad you're with us today, coming to you live from our Turfs Up radio studio in Louisville, Kentucky. And what we're going to talk about today and what brought about the impetus for this talk, honestly, is I was on some of the forums the other day looking, and guys were talking about, how many yards can you mow in a day? How much money should I make in a day? And it's all relevant. It's all important. But I think too many times the question is, how many yards should I mow in a day? Or how much money should I try to make in a day? And although those are important, but what we're going to talk about today is what makes each individual side of that important. It's not just yards, it's not just gross dollars, but what's really important is we're going to talk about mowing versus everything else. It's a broad scope, I know, right? Mowing versus everything else. But what we're going to compare, or what I'm going to talk about, is how $750 in mowing is completely different than $750 in everything else. And why? Why is that different? Because what I did when I started my business is I made the mistake of thinking, man, how many yards can I get out today? Man, I can do 15 yards or I can do 20 yards, or it's all based on the size of the yard. So I'm not telling you got to do 15 or 20 or 3. But just based on the sizes of the property that you're taking care of, a scenario that I'm going to create is a one-person operation. You're working by yourself, male or female, doesn't matter. It's just you going out on a daily basis. And we're saying, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to mow 15 yards at $50 a piece as an average. So I'm going to generate $750. Or do I want to go out and do something else, whether it's install a landscape, trimming, mulching, aeration, seeding? What can I go out in that same day and do $750 for of gross dollars? Where's my profit margin? That's what you need to ask yourself. Not am I doing $700 a day or $1,000 a day or $2,000 a day, but what profit margin are you looking at? Because what most contractors do is they just look at the daily production. And they're like, okay, man, I mow 15 yards and I'm averaging $50 a lawn. That's $750 a day. But the problem with that is simply this, guys. You got to look at it and say, how much of that $750 are you keeping? Because when we look at it from a mowing perspective, okay, yeah, it's easy to go out and generate $750 a day or $1,000 a day mowing lawns. But when you look at what it costs to generate that $1,000 versus how much you're keeping, in other words, net profit. What's the net profit on that $750? If you look at the green industry benchmark, and this goes back a couple of years, goes back to 2018, they said 49% of the mowing industry. That's not insulting anybody's intelligence with that, but think about that. 49%, so about half of the industry, is expecting and accepting less than a 10% net profit margin. Let that sink in for just a second. Half of the industry is expecting and accepting less than a 10% net profit margin. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying you need to take a really close look at it. See if that is potentially you. And even the top echelon of mowing and landscape contractors in the country, when you look at the mowing divisions, got me a little cheat sheet here on that benchmark just to get it right for you guys. The top 20% of companies in this country are only making 18% net profit. Where I find most contractors make the mistake is the same place I made the mistake at Wayne's Lawn Service before I understood what I needed to know about the numbers of my business, and that simply is this. The volume doesn't matter until you understand cost per hour of operation, and including yourself as a one-truck operation. Let's say you go out and do $750 in a day. A lot of guys tell me, well, Wayne, now that's $750, man. I'm making $300. Not most scenarios. Not if you look at really all the cost associated with going out and doing that $750, the truck, the trailer, the insurance, the lawnmower cost per hour, all your equipment cost per hour. And most importantly, where most guys forget is they pay themselves out of what they call profit. You as a one-truck operation are an expense to your company. You are a labor burden to your company. Don't make the mistake I made by not understanding that enough. Because if you're not doing it, somebody else has got to be paid to do it. So don't trick yourself into saying, well, I made $300 today out of that $750, because you really didn't in most cases. When you look at the industry benchmarks, it's nowhere close to that. You go out and you do $750, and let's say you're at the 10% side of that, that's $75 a day you're putting in your pocket. Now, one thing for sure is, regardless of where we're mowing or where we're landscaping, we've all got 24 hours in a day. And so many of those hours, based on the time of the year, are daylight hours, right? So what doesn't change for any of us is the amount of production hours we have the capability to utilize during the day. Are you spending too much time mowing lawns because you don't want to get outside that comfort zone and say, do more landscaping? You might say, well, my customers just, they don't do a lot of landscaping. You don't have to do a lot. You don't need a lot. But how you can solve part of that problem for you is look for a better client. Maybe the little old lady on Social Security, and I say that with all due respect because that got a lot of us started, me included, right? The person on the fixed income. How many people do you have tell you they're on a fixed income and they want their yard mowed, but maybe it's bi-weekly, it's not even on a regular basis, and we're cheating ourselves out of those profits for working for that type of clientele when we should be looking for a different clientele that's going to allow our companies, even as a one-truck operation, to be more successful and more profitable. We got to find the right clientele. So maybe instead of mowing 4, 5, 6 days a week, maybe we go after a higher end clientele that we do 2 or 3 days of mowing a week and maybe 2 or 3 days of landscaping. Because when we look at it from that same $750 perspective, let's just look at a small ranch house with, normal bushes going across the front, whatever normal may be, but y'all get my point. You could easily trim and mulch 2 of those in a day and generate more profit dollars than you're making mowing. So let's look at that same $750 generated landscaping. Traditionally, you're going to have at least a 30% margin on that. Easy. So now instead of making $75 a day, we're sitting there at, let me get my cheat sheet here. We're looking at about $225 a day. So even if you say, well, Wayne, I'm not at that 10% or below margin on mowing, let's put you in with the top dogs of the country, the most successful companies in this country, and you're at 18% profit on your mowing. That's only generating $135 of net profit a day. When you go out and landscape, do your mulching, your hedge trimming, edging, and you can go out and do $225 a day as a net profit. Don't make the mistakes I made. Don't spend all your time mowing grass, because $750, and I'm just using that as an example. You use any example you want. If you say, hey man, I can do $1,200 a day, I can do $2,000 a day in mowing, fill in the blank for your company on what you can do mowing, but I guarantee you, you can do the same volume in landscaping, but it takes us out of our comfort zone sometimes. I understand that. I get that. It happens to me. It happened to me. Until I finally one day sat down and thought about it and said, I've got to be more diversified. I'm not making any money cutting grass when I really figured out my numbers. And when I say I'm not making any money cutting grass, you guys understand what I'm saying. The net profit, why work yourself to death for this much profit when you can work yourself the same number of hours for this much profit in the day? Because at the end of the day, guys and ladies, it's your money. It's your money. So if you can go out and make, again, just on a $750 day, and that's not even a big day, you could easily do $1,000 to $1,200 a day if you just do a couple small mulch and trim jobs and edging, right? You're easily going to do at least what you can do in mowing, and more times than not, more, and keep more of it. And that's the key. What are you doing to keep more of it? Let some of that mowing go. Save some of those daylight hours that you've got available for some landscaping, and seasonally when you do your aeration, your seeding, fertilization and weed control, and I know you need licensing for that, but it's well worth the time and effort, because let's look back where we started. It's mowing versus everything else, and everything else is more profitable than mowing. Remember, guys, profit is not a dirty word. See you next time.